My name is Toun Okewale Sonaiya. I work with Women Radio, the only radio station dedicated to women in Nigeria. We're going to be 10 years old this December. So we have empathy, we have depth. We're able to tell stories from our perspective. We're able to bring stories to life. And because we are empathetic, and because we find ourselves in the story sometimes, it's you telling your story that other women and other people can relate to. So I think women are good storytellers. We go into the story, in depth into the story, ask ourselves questions while we're telling your story. And I think young people should start wherever you find yourself. You don't need a big studio. You can start in your room, you can start in your car, as long as your story is genuine, is authentic, and people can relate with it. I think you will make a headway. So I'll say absolutely yes, and they are doing very well. The foot soldiers and those who make women radio are young people. I'll say 80–90% of the staff strength are young people who are creative, who are dynamic. And I think they're doing fantastically well. Some of them started as youth corpers, they started as interns. As a matter of principle, we don't recruit experienced hands because then you want them to understand, you want them to be fluid, to be flexible, to be able to understand the vision, the mission. So they start as youth corpers, they start as interns, and they've progressed to running the station, managers, heading different departments. So I think young people are doing a fantastic job. That is a success and the basis of what we do at Women Radio. There are 9 units, and 7 of those units are managed, run by young people, and we're doing good. So when I said we don't hire, we have people who are experienced accountants, who are experienced lawyers, who are experienced HR personnel. But the core of the business, the programming, the content, the presenters, the producers, the engineers, the young people. I started radio at age 7. My father was a broadcaster. I was a guest, children's program. So at a very young age, I was used to all the equipment. I think by the time I finished university, I was already working full time at a radio station. Unlike young people today who just want to come and serve and go on radio, I think it took me about 3–4 years before I was given an opportunity to go on radio and just give a time check. And I remembered I had to tell my dad, my mom, and everybody in the neighborhood, listen to Ogun Radio tomorrow, I'm going to give the time check. So for 3 years, it took me 3 years to be able to say the time is 12 noon for somebody to come and read the news. My experience, I think I learned from the best of hands. It was practical experience for me. I learned how to edit the news, how to read the news. I learned how to sit with the editors and listen to them pronounce names of places, of people. I learned how to research. I learned how to edit. So it was a job that I enjoyed. My father was a broadcaster, as I said. So I enjoyed doing what I did, and I didn't see it as a chore. I didn't see it as work. I just saw it as a hobby. So it was quite easy for me. And I think if you have interest in anything you're doing, you do it effortlessly. And I believe that is what the young people, my young colleagues, that's why they're making a headway in the profession. It took me 3 years because, there was no nepotism. It had nothing to do with my father being a director at that time. I had to follow the process, and I had to trust the process. And I'm glad I I followed the process. I'm glad I learned everything. I can I can open a radio station. I understand engineering. I understand what happens in the newsroom. I mean, it gave me an opportunity to learn all the different departments, all the value chain of media. And I think that's what we also need to be doing to ensure that. So you hear people say, master of, what is the phrase now? Jack of all trades. I believe in jack of all trades. You know, have a bit of knowledge in everything. It does help. It does help. Working in audio media, in audio media has made me intentional, very intentional with the words that we use on radio. Unlike TV, where you use images, videos, and pictures to tell stories, on radio, it's your tone, it's your voice. It's the way you speak that creates that impression, that describes what you're doing. So I'll tell you a story, why it's good to be intentional, and this is a true life story. I think about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I was invited to an event at, I think it's an event somewhere on the island, maybe the British High, the consulate, the British or the US. And somebody introduced me to Cobhams, the artist, right? And when the president, oh, hi, meet Toun. She runs women radio. So when I said hello, he said, what? Is that Toun Okewale? So Cobhams is partially sighted, you know, he's. He said, is that Toun Okewale? I said, yes. He said, oh, I remember you at Ogun Radio. You used to keep my company. So this Ogun Radio was maybe 30-something years ago or 40-something years ago. And he remembered the voice because the voice kept his company and told stories at that time. So for me, audio and radio, you have to be intentional to tell stories. You have to be careful about the words and the picture you paint. So for me, it's been intentional with my words to inform people, to educate people, and sometimes to entertain people. Intentionality and being deliberate is a word for me. I think it's over 30 years. I mean, I'm 50. I think I'm 58 years old now. Yeah, I'm 58 years old, and I started radio at 7. At that time, that Cobhams. He must have referred to a time when maybe I was about 17, 18, 19. So that's a long time. Yeah. I grew up watching TV, listening to radio, listening to music, and reading a lot. And so when I think of the likes of Anike Agbaje-Williams, Madam Anike Agbaje-Williams, who was the first TV broadcaster in Africa. And I still see her. I go to Ibadan to see her. I remember at a very young age seeing her read the news. I remember Ruth Benemisia Opia. I remember Fumi Ajayi, I think. I remember Bimbo Roberts, now Mrs. Bimbo Oluyede. You know, I remember Fabiola Nikbekun when he does his sports commentary. And these are people that you look up to, and then still having the opportunity to still see them and talk to them. It made me intentional, deliberate, that years after, I still want people like Cobhams to say, oh, I listened to you and this is what he did to me. So it is quite important for us to be deliberate in everything we do. You have to be intentional in everything you do to be able to make an impact on people. So you see, media for me is not just about entertainment, it's about changing lives. So a woman once told us how listening to women radio gave her the strength to leave an abusive relationship. For me, if that is all that I have done with the platform of women radio, I'm fulfilled. And there are so many women out there, so many girls out there who listen, who we encourage with our words, with the programs. We encourage them, we inspire them, and there are other people who come on the radio station who tell their own stories of struggles, of challenges, of victory, not to be ashamed, not to feel bad. Women who are in politics, for instance, who talk about the challenges of women going into politics and, how I'm giving up. And we're telling them, you can't give up, young girls who are in tech. So for me, it is about changing lives. And so if I understand that 15 million people listen to women radio, both Lagos and Ogun State. If out of those 15 million people, we were able to impact one life, that is a big feat for us. And that is what we will continue to use the radio station and the platform and our voices to do, to amplify women's voices, to give women the audacity to do whatever they want to do, to give women the audacity and the strength to say, you know what, I'm going to say no, I'm not going to continue, and to give women the audacity to say, I want to contest, I want to be the governor, or I want to be the president. If that's what we will continue to use the platform to do, then we will continue to do that. Then when you hear men say that they now understand that when a woman says, when their wives or girlfriends say no, it means no. It doesn't mean that I have authority over you because you're my wife or you're my girlfriend. So when you hear men express those kind of things, you're fulfilled doing what you do. So we call it a male-dominated industry because you have less women owning radio stations, right? You have more women actually working in the media, but you have less women as decision makers or as owners. I think what has helped me is the fact that I've stayed on a course that I'm very comfortable with. There are over 50-something radio stations in the Lagos area alone. So for you to distinguish yourself, you need to do something different from what others are doing. There are so many radio stations doing fantastically well when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to sports, when it comes to news. But we decided to create a radio station by women, for women. And so staying on that course of being female-centric, unapologetically women, has helped to give one an authoritative voice. When people are discussing politics, I will tell you how Nigeria needs to do better for women in politics. So when you're talking about agriculture, I'll tell you how you need to do well for women in the value chain of agric. When you talk about tech, I'll tell you why we need to have more women in technology and what it would benefit, how it would benefit Nigeria. So I just focus on my strength. My strength is women. And when my strength is women, people have no choice than to acknowledge what we do, because that is my strength. I'll give you the statistics. I'll give you what we need to do. I'll explain to you why Nigeria will be better when you include and involve more women. And I think that is what has helped. We've not diluted anything. We've just stayed true to the vision, to the mission of being, 100% female-centric, no apologies. We just do what we love doing, being the voice and amplifying the voices of women at the grassroots level, women in urban areas, women in politics and business and tech, in sports, in every way you could think of. And I think that has really helped. And for me, you need to know your niche, you need to know what you're good in, and just keep, improving, teaching yourself, doing everything for you to become the master in what you do. That is what has helped me, and that is what has helped Women Radio.